It's May 3rd, and the strange side of history awaits. Today, we have a child torn into a storm and returned, a disaster where a delay meant survival, and a mountain face that vanished into the dark. Let's begin. On May 3rd, 1999, the sky over Bridge Creek turned a shade no one saw. The sky over Bridge Creek turned a deep, unnatural green. And then, the sound, like a freight train tearing through the earth itself. Inside a small home, 10-month-old Aaliyah Crago was in her mother Amy's arms. She was only a baby, too young to understand that just outside, one of the most powerful tornadoes was closing in. When it hit, it didn't just destroy the house, it erased it. In an instant, the walls vanished, the roof disappeared, and Aaliyah was ripped from her mother's arms, swallowed by the storm. Amy survived. She had been thrown, battered, and left in a landscape that no longer looked like a neighborhood. Hours later, the rescuers searched through the debris, and a sheriff's deputy spotted something in the mud. A small shape, face down and still. It was Aaliyah. She had been thrown nearly 100 feet, carried by the wind that reached 300 miles per hour. She was covered in mud and debris, and somehow still alive. No one could explain it. Entire blocks were gone, and even her own grandmother did not survive. But Aaliyah, lives had ended in seconds, but Aaliyah, soon called the Miracle Mud Baby, lived. A storm erased entire neighborhoods and left one child who survived almost untouched. On May 3rd, 1986, under the dim floodlights in Bandar Anak International Airport, Air Lanka, Flight 512, sat waiting on the tarmac, unknowingly carrying something deadly. It was supposed to be a routine long-haul flight from London, continuing to the Maldives. Passengers were restless, irritated by the delay, which was caused by minor cargo damage. Just another inconvenience, another late departure. But inside the craft's cargo hold, hidden among ordinary supplies, was something far more sinister, a bomb. It had been planted with precision, designed to detonate mid-flight over the vast emptiness of the Indian Ocean. And if everything had gone to plan, the plane would have vanished into darkness. But something did go wrong. The delay stretched on, minutes and more. Then, without warning, the night spilled open. The explosion tore through the rear of the aircraft, ripping the fuselage apart while it still sat on the ground. Fire and debris erupted onto the plane. Panic followed. 21 people were killed instantly, and dozens more injured. But over 100 passengers and crew weren't on board yet. They had been waiting, complaining, and being frustrated, but they were alive. Investigators confirmed something chilling. The bomb had been timed for the sky, for a moment when survival would have been impossible. A simple delay, an inconvenience no one wanted, became the only thing standing between life and death for many of those passengers. On May 3rd, 2003, something that had watched the world for 10,000 years vanished. High above the Frankeny Notch, the stone face known as the Old Man of the Mountain had stood for centuries, silent, unmoving, on the edge of the Cannon Mountain. Generations looked up and saw its face carved by nature itself. It wasn't just a rock, it was a symbol, a presence. But that night, between midnight and 2 a.m., the mountain shifted. There was no witnesses, only wind and rain. A slow, invisible force of water freezing deep inside the cracks, expanding, that had been held together for millennia. For decades prior, engineers had tried to save it. Steel rods were driven into the stone, tightening its fragile structure, like stitching a wound in granite. But nature doesn't negotiate forever. When park rangers arrived in the morning, something felt wrong. The cliff looked empty, and the familiar outline was gone. The old man had fallen. No dramatic sounds echoed through the valley, no final moment anyone could point to, just complete absence. They would later build what became Profiler Plaza, standing in a precise spot where metal beams now recreated the illusion of the face, if you line them up just right. Another day, another strange bite from history. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your next eerie dose is just a day away.